good afternoon from Brooks River in Katmai National Park, Alaska. Welcome to Bearcam 2019. My name is Mike Fitz, your resident naturalist with Explore.org, and I'm joined today by Naomi, Boak, Koster, a couple of rangers at Katmai Conservancy, an organization advocating for and protecting Katmai National Park. This is our first live chat of 2019, the first of many, and this is a very exciting time of the year to watch Bearcam. Bearcam just went live a few days ago. A lot of things are happening. The salmon are just arriving. The bears are just arriving. So a lot of activity to look forward to over the next several weeks and months. During the chat today, we're going to try to introduce you to the phenomenon of Brooks Falls and Brooks River. Why are the bears here? A little bit about this location. The bears and salmon gather here, and we'll also try to take the time to answer your questions. Which reminds me, if you do have questions for us, make sure that you are dropping them in the chat window on the Brooks live chat page on Explore.org. Go down to the bottom of the page, and a helpful moderator from Explore will send those in our direction. So if we're looking at like our iPhones, it's looking for those questions. We were joking before, it's not because we're checking our MySpace pages or anything like that.
Mike is, but I'm not.
Yeah. So again, welcome to Bearcam 2019. Bears and salmon here, we've been talking back and forth a lot over the past few days about how they survive here. I mean, this is a very competitive place. Bears and salmon have to compete quite substantially to survive, and success is not guaranteed. So we're going to talk about a wide variety of things during the chat. But before we get into that, I really do want to introduce my partners here on the live broadcast today. You'll be seeing a lot of them on camera as the season continues. So Naomi and John, I really do thank you for joining me today and helping us to make the chat a success. But do you want to introduce yourself? Maybe we'll start with Naomi first. Where do you hail from, and what were you doing before Bearcam?
There was no life before Bearcam.
No life before Bearcam.
I'm from New York City, and I am a filmmaker and a television producer by trade, and this is my 6th season as a Bearcam addict by choice.
I'm from Ohio. I came here by way of Grand Canyon National Park and most recently Crater Lake National Park. It's my first time in Alaska. So I will be learning a lot about brown bears along with you, and I'm really looking forward to how the season's going to progress.
Yeah, and I'm also very much looking forward to the season. Every season here at Brooks River is different. For those of you who don't know me, I used to be a park ranger here at Katmai, and then Explore.org has been generous enough to keep me involved in the Bearcam phenomenon after I left my work here at Katmai, so I'm very grateful to them. Grateful to the National Park Service for letting me come back each year. Maybe they don't have to do that. I don't know. But yeah, I'm very grateful for that. So I started watching bears here at Katmai in 2007, and each year is very different. It's one of the things that makes watching Bearcam, I think, so special. But to begin, I think we want to start out by giving everybody a bit of the context of what the river is like here, where we are in particular, because you can tune in to Bearcam and not really see anything about where we might be. So John, can you explain a little bit about where we are here?
Yeah, so we are about 350 miles southwest of Anchorage, Alaska, right near the top of the Alaska Peninsula in the Bristol Bay watershed. So to put that into perspective, we're pretty far north, about 59 degrees north. That means that in the summer here, the sun does go down, but not for very long. It never gets really dark. To imagine how far west we are, just imagine if you flew straight south from here, you would eventually run into the world's largest active volcano, Mauna Loa, in Hawaii. So we're pretty far north and pretty far west, compared to the lower 48. Behind us we have the Brooks River, which is about 1.5 miles long. And so about three-quarters of a mile upriver from here is Lake Brooks, which is where all the water's coming from. And about 3/4 of a mile this way, downriver, is Naknek Lake, which is where all that water is flowing. And that water will eventually flow out Naknek River and into the sea at Bristol Bay.
And Naomi, we got this. We're in a pretty remote location here. It's, again, like you were saying, over 300 miles southwest of Anchorage, Alaska. But it doesn't necessarily give us all the details on why the bears are here. So can you explain why we have so many brown bears gathering at Brooks Falls?
Well, why the bears are here and why we are here is salmon, salmon. This is one of the largest salmon runs in the world, and it is I'd say the largest all-you-can-eat salmon bar in the world. Bears are here because they haven't eaten in a long time. They go into hibernation after we've seen them in October, and they're hungry. They have been eating for a very long time, so they come here where they know there's going to be a lot of food. And right now the salmon came July 16th, and the bears are here, and so are we.
And yeah, the bears are here, of course, because of the salmon. The salmon are here because this is a wonderful habitat for them. The Bristol Bay watershed, which Katmai National Park, most of Katmai is part of, is a largely unengineered landscape. It's unengineered by humanity, so it's a pristine landscape. Salmon have free access to the rivers and streams of this area. Great spawning habitat, particularly for sockeye salmon, and that's the majority of the fish that you'll see jumping Brooks Falls are that species of Pacific salmon, sockeye salmon. And each year we can get several 100,000 sockeye salmon swimming through Brooks River. And if you're a brown bear, yeah, you gotta eat a year's worth of food in 6 months or less to survive. So it's a short window of opportunity for brown bears to make a living here at Katmai, and that's why they start to gather here right at the beginning of the salmon run, really at the beginning of the salmon run right now. One of the things that we'll see over the course of the season is that things are changing, John. We'll see the bear activity change over the course of the season. We'll see the salmon activity change over the course of the season. But what have we been seeing so far early on in the scope of bears and salmon at Brooks River?
Yeah, so as Naomi already mentioned, the first sockeye, we started seeing them here a bit over a week ago, and there's a bunch of sockeye trying to jump the falls right now. We've got a couple of bears fishing at the falls right now, and so ever since those first sockeye salmon showed up, we've had bears arriving here in increasing numbers. So there's just downriver, there's salmon schooling, staging, and they will occasionally make these big pushes. They want to go upriver. They want to spawn maybe in Lake Brooks streams, and those are the salmon that want to go upriver to spawn. And so the falls here creates this natural barrier to their doing that, and that's what gives the bears this amazing opportunity to catch fish. And they have a lot of interesting different ways of doing that, don't they, Mike?
Yeah, the individuality of the bears here, I think, is one of the most interesting aspects of watching bears at Brooks River. Unlike most bear viewing areas in Alaska or elsewhere in North America, we know an awful lot about these individual animals. We see them from year to year. Many of them come back to the same place, fishing the same spot year after year. So we see them grow up, we see them age and mature. We see them raising offspring. We have multiple generations of bears, family lineages using Brooks River. So the individuality of the bears, I think, is one of the most interesting things to watch for. And then right now on Bearcam, I think one of the easiest ways to pick that out is just to watch their different fishing styles. We see, like you're bears fishing on the lip. We'll see bears running down. Not all bears are good at fishing the lip of the waterfall. Some are better at fishing down below or prefer to fish down below. Some are better at sprinting through the water to pounce on salmon. So you'll see a wide variety of behaviors throughout the course of the summer as you're watching Bearcam. And fishing at Brooks Falls, I think, is one of the easiest ways to actually see that. course, you're not going to see brown bears doing the same thing at Brooks Falls or at Brooks River throughout the course of the summer. It's going to change quite a lot, isn't it, Natalie?
Yeah. Well, we're all in for a treat, and for those of you who've been watching the cams, you know that. And for new people, welcome, because next week is July, and July is bear month. The bears are here in force. The salmon are swimming to their spawning spots, and you will see everything that Mike described in bear behavior. So many things to watch. It's bears in a close space with other bears, which doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen everywhere. So you'll see bears jockeying to be top bear. You'll see subadults who are so much fun to watch. Those are the teenagers of the bear world, and they're trying to figure out, well, what's my place in all? How do I fish? Gee, do I remember what Mom taught me? And it seems a little different than last year. And you'll see families, sows with new cubs, sows with yearling cubs, and you'll see those yearling cubs really learning how to fish. Then we go August, really head to smaller streams and tributaries, and the bears do follow because it's easier to fish, they can expend less energy, and they can get fat. But sometimes there are anomalies, like those of you who were watching last year, we had a record-breaking salmon run, and the bears hung around in August. So who knows? Maybe there'll be a lot of bear watching here in August. Fingers crossed, guys. Then September, salmon come back and bears come back. Salmon come back to spawn, and after they spawn, they die. And so it's kind of easy pickings, and those easy pickings is down at the lower river. And you all are going to be very excited about the new lower river cams when they go live too. So that's September with more bear activity. Then October, it's things slow down, it's colder, it's less food, and the bears go off to hibernate, nice and fat.
There are plenty of storylines, I think, to follow this year. One of them is sort of that ebb and flow of the seasonality of bears and salmon here. One of the storylines that I'll be following this year is, and every year really, is just how many fish end up coming back. So far into the Naknek River watershed, there, at least as of a couple of days ago, about, I think if I remember correctly, about 60,000 sockeye salmon had escaped into the Naknek River watershed, and Brooks River gets about 20% of the entire run. So if we get 1 million fish coming back in the Naknek River watershed, then that means at least 200,000 fish on an average year will come back into this watershed. So if there's more fish coming back, that means there's more opportunities for bears, and I really do admire salmon for their perseverance, their determination. These fish will not quit until they succeed in spawning or something kills them, like a bear or an eagle or something like that. So those are one of those storylines that I'm following. And then one of the ones associated with bears at this time of the year too is the hierarchy. Bears exist within this hierarchy where they posture, they communicate with one another, they attain certain levels of dominance depending on their size and disposition. So I'm really interested to see how that shakes out over time. We have 2 or 3 really big adult males fishing at Brooks Falls off and on over the past 3 days. The 2 most dominant males on the river, number 856 and number 747, they've both been around quite a bit, and I'm looking to see if they're going to maintain their spot on the top of the hierarchy this year. But all bears exist within that hierarchy, and we've been watching some smaller and younger bears existing within this too. And John, you were watching an adult female just over the past few days as well. You found interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested in watching. I know she's a fan favorite, but Bear 128, also called Grazer, she was the first bear that I saw fishing at the falls, and I was just immediately impressed by her energy and her skill. She just came bounding through the pools, and I think she caught 2 fish in about 2 minutes just by plunging straight head first in, and came up with a salmon each time. And I think she's about 14 and a half years old now, and she's one of the more, if not the most dominant adult female bears here. She had her first litter, I think, in 2016. Her 3 cubs, and so a lot of people were hoping that she would come back with spring cubs this year. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but I'm really going to be rooting for her to catch a lot of salmon and pack on the pounds before she goes to den in winter, just so she'll have the best chances of hopefully reproductive success next year.
She's been doing really well at the falls so far. Maybe she might be the most successful bear at the falls so far this year. Last night I saw her catch about 12, and that was kind of a low number compared to some of the other nights that she's done. And that was only during my time when I was on the wildlifting platform here at the falls. So she's probably already been packing in tens and tens of thousands of calories. So yeah, I think she'll be quite pudgy this year for sure. But Naomi, you're interested in watching a young adult male in particular, right?
I am so interested in the continuing saga of Bear 503. And for those of you who don't know 503 has just such an amazing history. 503 was let go by his mother early. He was emancipated early by his mother, and then he was adopted by Bear 435 Molly. And so he got an extra year with a mom, which is a lot more training, a lot more protection for a year. And then since then, he's just fascinating. He is big for a 6-year-old bear. He's now an adult. He makes friends with a lot of other bears. He plays with them. He even shares his fish with some of them. But I want to see what's going to happen. He's big. Maybe he could become one of the most dominant bears in the future. Don't know. He started to get interested in the girls last year, so maybe we'll see some of that. Will he continue to play with his friend 151 Walker? I just think that his soap opera will continue. I can't wait to see 503 this year. By the way, he's not here yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen him yet. We can expect to see new bears arriving every day on the cams. So again, another interesting part about tuning in at this time of the year. The bears are just encountering one another for the first time.
And Otis is not here yet, in case that's a question.
That probably is a question too. Yeah, we probably haven't seen that yet, so we'll get that out of the way right now. One other thing that we have been seeing recently is several bear families showing up, especially near the mouth of the river. Occasionally one might wander up this way at Brooks Falls, but Brooks Falls can be a tough place for mothers with cubs to come into, just because there's not a lot of space for them. They not only are trying to catch fish, but they have to be vigilant to make sure that the cubs are protected. So a lot of moms with cubs will avoid this area, but we've seen at least 3 females so far with 3 yearlings apiece. So yearlings are cubs in their second summer. We had a sighting of 1 female with 1 spring cub, and we haven't seen her in several days. But we can maybe expect to find mothers with new spring cubs coming back at any point in time. So those are, another thing to look forward to. The devotion and the maternal instincts of these mother bears is laid bare, pun intended, out there. They really do sacrifice a lot for their offspring. So another storyline to watch this summer. And then one class of bear that we kind of mentioned just briefly earlier in the chat, but haven't discussed too much, happens to be the younger independent bears that aren't fully mature, the subadult bears. And what do you think we're going to see out of them this year?
Well, I already saw, I was talking about 128 Grazer before, and that first time when I saw her fishing, she eventually ended up fishing on the lip, and I saw a subadult bear who was at least as large as her, if not maybe even a little bit bigger, sort of approach her on the lip, and she wasn't having this at all. So, they both stood up on their hind legs and were baring their teeth and growling at each other. And this subadult quickly learned that he wasn't going to be able to intimidate or push 128 from her spot there at the lip of the falls.
They also have been testing us by coming to camp where all the people are, and we like to try and keep that a bear-free zone. And twice I have almost been run over by 2 subadults racing through camp. So I love watching the subadults. They are so exciting and so much fun.
watching them learn and mature, find their own way in the world. That is one of the, again, very enjoyable things about watching bears on the Bearcam. So you get to watch them just along with us. And in fact, a lot of people are watching 24/7, so they get to see a lot more than we do. So often we learn about the bears by reading about and hearing about your observations on Bearcam. So the audience at home, you're certainly a part of this process. We've been throwing out a bunch of numbers, maybe a couple of nicknames here and there about the brown bears. You might be wondering, well, who are these bears that we're talking about? If you want to learn more about these brown bears, go to Katmai's website, find the publications and download section, or just type in Katmai ebooks into a search engine, and the link should be the first hit. And you can download the Bears of Brooks River, a guide to their identification, lives, and habits, and it lists all of the bears that we've been talking about really so far. The 2019 version should be out shortly, so we don't have a set release date yet for that, but the park has been working very, very hard on getting that updated and released to the public. So download that, take a look. It's a great guide. It has also other information about the ecology of the bears and salmon here at Brooks River. And we're coming up on towards the conclusion of our chat, but we do want to get to some of your questions here shortly. But again, I do invite everybody to continue watching throughout the summer to see how the river changes, to tune in for more live chats about the bears and salmon here at Brooks River, to see how bears compete and survive in this environment, to watch the determination of salmon here at Brooks River. It's a really wonderful experience, and we're so glad that we can share it with people all around the world. So this place we know is very meaningful to us, and we're glad that it's very meaningful to you as well. Before we get to our questions, though, it might be a good time to reintroduce ourselves in case people are wondering who we might be. So again, my name is Mike Fitz. I am a former park ranger here at Katmai National Park, and now I am the resident naturalist with Explore.org.
And I am Katmai Conservancy Ranger Naomi, and this is my 6th season as a Bearcam addict. So you guys are going to have to watch for me because I'm out here and I don't see as much as you do, probably.
And I'm Katmai Conservancy Ranger John, and it's my first season in Alaska.
Yeah, so we're so glad that you can join us. And Naomi, you maybe have been browsing the questions from time to time?
I have.
Yeah.
Well, there are a few new bridge questions, and I'm going to kind of group them together.
Okay.
People want to know how are the bears responding to the new bridge, and since the old bridge is gone, where is the current underwater camera located? And maybe you want to talk also about the other cameras around.
Okay. So I'll get to the underwater camera first, and if I forget the other stuff, remind me. Chime in with your thoughts, of course. The underwater camera is basically not quite dead center in the middle of the bridge in the main channel of Brooks River. So it's going to give us a really great view of salmon swimming, bears swimming by. So it's still in about the approximate location that it was in previous years. So it's not quite in the middle of the main channel of Brooks River, but fairly close. There's 2 other cameras that we had last year at the mouth of Brooks River, and those aren't live yet. So those, you'll see similar camera views on those. And then there's an additional camera that we installed on the north side of the river, closer to Brooks Lodge. And that, I think, will give us a really great view into some of the areas looking upstream that maybe we couldn't see as well on the other cameras in the past. So I think that'll be really great for us to see. And there's one other part to that question, wasn't there?
How the bears have reacted.
Oh yeah, how the bears have reacted. And I've been seeing mostly just bears that are very used to very, very. Just got a note from our producer standing behind us here. So we've been seeing a lot of bears down at the mouth of the river. Most of them are habituated to the presence of people, from what I have been seeing. So those are bears that are somewhat tolerant of the activity associated with people, the noise that we make, the foot traffic, the vehicles that are used in that area. So they seem to just kind of walk right under the bridge, but there are some bears that will walk underneath, and they're not quite used So it really remains to be seen. Bears are reacting to the bridge. I think a big difference between here, where we are at Brooks Falls, and the mouth of the river is that at the mouth of the river, humans are occupying both sides of the river, and here it's really only on the south side that where we're standing that people come and go from. The bears have all that other side of the river for themselves, so it's a little bit of a different dynamic. But most of the bears down at the mouth seem to be just going about their business as they would normally.
And did you mention the bear monitors? We've got.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, we've got the park has also brought on a couple of bear monitors to observe and record how the bears are reacting to the bridge. So we will know a lot more this season about the bears' reaction. I've got a question here. I knew we'd get upstaged by the bears behind us. That's a good thing.
Of course. Yeah, they're the real celebrities,
yeah.
not us.
We're go in there in front of them, steal the scene. But what do you know about what looks like an injury to Holly 435's neck?
Yeah, so she does have what looks like some raw marks or wounds right on the back of her neck. And that actually, I think, is from breeding. So this is the mating season right now. We haven't really seen a lot of really kind of what you would consider classic bear courting behavior, where one bear follows a male follows a female until she's receptive to his advances, so to speak. But when bears copulate, the males will often bite and hold the female on the back of her neck. So I think that's probably what it is from. It probably wasn't from a fight. It was probably from her copulating with an adult male. No one witnessed that, so we don't know for sure. But that's my best guess on why she has those raw marks on the back of her neck.
Yeah, you guys ask good questions. Another one says, do you know how far the bears travel to get to Brooks Falls? We know how far we've traveled.
Yeah, we've come a long way for sure. It's not really sure, and if you've read anything different, please chime in. Brooks River is really one of the first places in the central part of Katmai where salmon are accessible to bears, and that's why there's so many bears that gather here. But we don't know how far an individual would travel. They can cover territory very, very easily, far easier than we can going through the forest around here. And anyone who's ever done any bushwhacking around here knows it's pretty rough going. So they can easily come from dozens of miles away. We don't know for sure. We know bears have traveled from Brooks River outside of the park boundaries, so even as far as king salmon and a little bit farther. So that's not common, but it has happened in the past. So 30, 40 miles, 50 miles away in some instances. And we know that some of the bears that have used Brooks River in the fall have traveled, in the spring, they've traveled 60 miles away from the spot where they den. And that was based on some information in the 70s. But yeah, we don't really know for sure. It'd be interesting to find out, where Popeye goes or where Holly goes. There's a couple of bears that are right behind us right now, but we don't know.
I've got a good question here, which I kind of liken to what do women really want? How do the bears know when to come to the falls?
Maybe you want to jump in on that?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, we know that the salmon arrived a week ago and the bears started trickling in, and now they're here. So, Mike, you better tell me, because I can't read a bear's mind.
Yeah, and this is one of those questions where we wish that we could ask the bear, really, is your prompt? What are you looking for that says, hey, it's time to come back? Bears, I'm sure. Sorry, biting fly. Yeah, we got a lot of those.
Black flies. Yeah.
We'll have another chat about all the bugs.
Yeah. John actually got kind of whacked by a black fly right on his forehead before the chat, and he had a big streak of blood coming down his forehead. So one of the hazards of being out here at Brooks River. But back to the question, I think it's they're so conditioned. The bears are so conditioned to feed on salmon here that I think they know it's about the time of the year, and they can really kind of make a map of the world based on food, and especially using their sense of smell, which is one of the powerful senses of smell in the mammal and the dogs. It's many orders of magnitude greater than a human's. And I was doing some reading on this winter, and really I've come to think that if we could actually talk to a bear, we wouldn't be able to understand their vocabulary associated with their sense of smell, because it is so profound. So I really do think that they're able to, once some bears are feeding on salmon, then that scent of salmon gets in the air, and that may not travel many miles, but it travels within the vicinity here. You can see the bears kind of pick up their nose when other bears are eating fish and things like that. But I also think it's the time of the year. The sun seems right, the vegetation seems right. So there's probably a variety of cues, but that's another question we don't really know the answer to.
Yeah. There's another question which a viewer has. Have you seen any cubs yet?
I had one spring cub. Have you seen any others?
No. We've heard rumors, but I haven't seen any yet. Have you, John?
Nope. No.
I can't wait.
They're so fun to watch. But often those mothers with young cubs are the last class of bear to arrive at Brooks River. So it's not surprising that we haven't really seen them yet. Sometimes, some years we haven't seen them until the middle of July.
Okay. John, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Are you married? That's not the question. John, how do you study? E-books, cams, and previous live chats, play-by-plays?
That's what I have been doing to try to understand sort of the community and to understand this format of presentation. And I've also been reading biology papers about bears, been reading some really good books about salmon and bear ecology recommended by Mike. So I haven't had a whole lot of time to prepare yet, but I'm doing my best to get on the page with you guys.
And John's been asking me a lot of difficult questions. So I've been reading this thing that you wrote, and that doesn't make sense. So
yeah, it's good for Mike too.
Yeah, so it helps me to learn things and make sure that was my fact that I wrote in there actually correct? So I love talking to people about brown bears, and we've had some really great conversations over the past few weeks about brown bears here. It's a little after 1 o'clock our time, so we're running just a little bit over. Maybe we'll do one more question before we conclude the chat. I know we have a bunch more, but we'll try to do one more.
Okay. What is the greatest number of fish jumping from the jacuzzi up the falls in a 60-second time period?
The most I've ever seen is over 300 in a minute. And it's so hard to count them. That's just an estimate because it's really like 1, 2, 5, 15, 20. It's just like masses of fish jumping up at the same time. So it can be 200 to 300, sometimes more per minute jumping there. And on those days, the bears are very, very well fed. What we're seeing right now, salmon jumping a minute, that's fairly average into the river. They won't come in at a consistent rate. So you're tuning in an hour, and all of a sudden there's this big wave of fish. That's not surprising. And if you tune in tomorrow and it doesn't seem like there's any bears here, that's not surprising either.
And Mike, how many of those salmon actually make it over the falls?
I think eventually all of them want to make it, unless they get intercepted by a bear or they hit the waterfall and knock themselves silly, which happens sometimes. You see them, salmon just drifting downstream, and you think it probably jumped and hit the rock and just gave itself a concussion or something like that. I've been conducting this not an experiment, but an observation, natural history observation project of mine over the past several years, where I count the number of fish jumping over a 1 minute period, and I also count that successfully make the jump in that same 1 minute period. Just get a percentage of how many fish make the leap. And actually, I re-looked at my numbers recently, and it's actually less than 7% actually make that jump successfully. So what that means to me is that it's not that 7% of the fish make it; it's that they have to try many times before they get it right. So practice makes perfect. It's a difficult leap. They've never had to deal with anything like this. They've tumbled over it going out, but they didn't stick around to take a look and say, oh yeah, I'll have to remember this spot. So they just went straight out to the ocean. Yeah, it's again one of those really great examples of their determination in the face of great odds. And the falls can be 6 to 8 feet high, so it's not a little leap for them. But
any more questions, or shall we?
I think we should call it a day. I'm probably going to get sunburned here too, and I know our helper has to probably end up other duties, but again, tune in for more live chats. We'll be online quite frequently this summer, not only with these face-to-face or on-camera live chats, but we'll also be doing our plays where we are narrating the bear and salmon activities. But again, my name is Mike Fitz with Explore.org, and I'm glad that Naomi and John from the Katmai Conservancy, rangers with them, can join me and help to interpret the bears and salmon here at Brooks River. So we will be talking to you soon, and thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Bye.